Hi, I'm Mary Powell, and I lost my son Matthew 3 years ago on June 14th, 2022. Matthew was 40 years old and he died by suicide. Our son Matthew was an absolutely darling, darling child. He was very easy to raise. He always had a very strong interest in reading. He loved learning things. He was game for anything. Um, in his adult years, he was extremely brilliant. He went to Ivy League college. He studied at Oxford. He traveled the world. He fell in love with a German woman, and he chose to move to Germany and get married and raise his family there. The 15 years that he lived in Germany, I was able to visit him twice a year, and I got to know his family very, very well. And he tried very, very much to make his life as full and rich and as free from his mental illness as possible. In the last 2 years of his life, unfortunately, his mental illness got very, very strong. He was hospitalized for 3 months. Tricky navigation to live life as we live life on a normal basis. It was very challenging for Matthew. We had a sweet relationship, but it was also very challenged. He tried to create a new life, and he did that very, very well, but he still had his mental illness. Over the 15 years Matthew lived in Germany, I became very, extremely close with his wife, Yvonne. We were very, very close, very good friends, and his two children, Eleonora and Kieran. And I woke up one morning and saw on my phone that Yvonne had said, call ASAP, and I knew. And I called and she just said, Matthew died. It was a horrific thing to hear, but I wasn't surprised. And part of me was somewhat relieved for his family because his last 2 years of life were very challenging on that sweet little family that he loved so dearly. I kicked into action. It was like, okay, I made my reservations. I got there. I stayed there for over a month. I helped Yvonne put together the funeral. I stayed with the children. I was very much a part of them experiencing saying goodbye to Matthew, their husband, their father, my son. It didn't hit me until I got back home, but it was crushing to know that he no longer was there for his family, because he was a very, very good father. And it was crushing to know that he could not stay here any longer. His pain was just too great for him to stay here any longer. I was able to, on a very personal level, share that pain with him. We talked a lot. I visited a lot. In fact, I spoke with him the night before he died, and I said, son, you are in crisis. You need to get help. And that was our last conversation. So like I said, we lost our son 3 years ago. And the shock had settled. The sadness had found its place, but I was still broken inside. I still felt that I could have made more of a difference for Matthew. I still felt like I had somehow, as his mother, let him down. And this was a very subconscious belief system that I had developed. And I realized that I was still walking around kind of with my head down, that I wasn't able to help my son be okay on this earth. And one day, out of nowhere, I'm sitting on my computer and Broken and Blessed came up, and I read it and I thought, oh, that's interesting. Not thinking that I needed to do any work around grief because it was 3 years on. And then I read about the two facilitators, Marianne and Greg, and I really, really liked their profile. And I thought, I'm going to sign up for this. I'm going to sign up for this. And I am so happy I did, because consequently, when I got there, I realized I was walking around without seeking any support, without sharing my grief, without mourning. I just kind of like stoically said, okay, Matthew died. He had mental illness. I'm very much a part of his family. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. But I didn't check in, understand what I was really emotionally experiencing. And by going to this retreat weekend, I learned so much. It made me have a more deep understanding of my son's pain. I knew his pain, but the weekend brought it to my heart to really understand the pain that man was in. I also really loved the prayer and meditation parts to still myself and get to a place that I knew that everything was okay. And that felt so comforting. And I would say the most impactful and powerful part of the weekend for me were the rituals. What was the lighting of the candles and remembering my son, remembering Matthew, and really taking the time to say, God, I loved you, Matt. And I still do. I love you, Matt. You're my son. And to remember him. And then the labyrinth walk, when we walked in and they said, go to the center from the day you found out about the death of your person to the center as you've been so far, and then walk out with a new way of how you're going to live your life. That was powerful, because I did walk out saying, all right, I'm going to live my life with my head a little taller and in peace, that I did do enough for my son. I walked away from that weekend with true forgiveness, because I have a brand new understanding of the level of that pain, that my son died because of his pain. From my experience with the Broken and Blessed weekend, I can honestly say that I have a more gentle feeling deep inside, and I've actually called Matthew back into my life, and I get to have the blessing of the legacy of his two children, who I just adore. And he did a fabulous job with them. He gave them his all. And then he was done. So today, I get to move forward in my life as I am. I get to know that I did a really good job at being Matthew's mother. I get to be the best grandmother in the whole world to his two children. And I have a little bit more skip in my walk, because I literally have let go of feeling that I let him down. I didn't let him down. And today I know that from spending a weekend and learning about suicide, learning about mental illness, sharing this experience with other parents, other people who have experienced exactly this. I am so happy I had that safe place to feel very, very vulnerable. Thank you.